Good morning, everyone. A right hand wave if you are awake. A left hand wave if you're awake. I am so glad to see everyone here today. Good morning and welcome to today's plenary session. I have gotten to know the speaker today over this conference, and it is going to be an incredible presentation. I'm Natalie. I'm from the Singapore Botanic Gardens, and it is a great privilege to be part of this special event. I am delighted to introduce today's speaker, an environmental activist from Cameroon, Farmer Tantoh, whose full name is Dieudonné Tantoh Nfoba. Farmer Tantoh is a dedicated practitioner who empowers local farmers and youth through organic farming and environmental education. He founded the non-profit organization Save Your Future Association, and in collaboration with international volunteers, manages the Chua Chua Botanical Garden. His contributions have earned him international recognition, including participation in water research programs in the United States and in Russia. And he is selected as both an Ashoka Fellow and a Making More Health Fellow. His story has also been published as a children's book, widely used in environmental education. Please join me in welcoming Farmer Tantoh, founder of Save Your Future Association, to the stage with a round of warm applause.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So I'm so honored to be here, and I want to thank KNA, BGCI for the amazing opportunity given me to be here all the way from Cameroon. It's my first time to speak to a crowd like this. I feel a little bit nervous, but I'm going to get there. So I'll be speaking on the titles, Leaving No One Behind, Promoting Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement in Botanic Gardens. So, and the title of my presentation is Growing an Environmental Movement in Cameroon, the Farmer Tantoh New Village Environmental Movement. So this is the outline of my presentation. I'm going to have an introduction, my early life, Botanic Gardens of Cameroon, conserving plant diversity around water catchments, the New Village Environmental Movement, Eco-Village, and volunteerism and recognition. So who am I? So my name is Dieudonné Tantoh Nfoba. I'm popularly known as Farmer Tantoh. Actually, Farmer was like a nickname that was meant like an insult, because I love talking about agriculture when I was in high school. So a lot of friends mock at me because in Cameroon, farming is for dirty people, for poor people. But I took it as a challenge, and I wrote on my shirt, Farmer Tantoh, because when there's no farmer, there's no future. You see that photo there? I took that photo about 15 years ago. By then, I had about 7 gray hair. So now, 15 years later, I have more than 500 gray hair now. So which shows that I'm growing older and wiser, but I'm still young at heart. So I was born in Cameroon. I'm a grassroots environmental activist and a farmer. Cameroon is a country located in Central Africa with a population of over 27 million people. We speak over 250 native dialects, and that is Cameroon. So today I'm 46 years. Soon to be 47 years on the 28th of this month. I'm an Ashoka Fellow and a Making More Health Fellow, which are global initiatives that aim to create a healthier world for individuals, animals, and their communities. Ashoka and Making More Health identify and support social entrepreneurs across the globe, learn from their patterns in their innovations, and mobilize a global community that embraces these new frameworks to build an everyone a change maker world. So how do you grow a movement? I believe that in order to grow a movement, you need to start small, because from small things, big things will definitely grow. So in my early life, I started my movement when I was a teenager in high school. So I conceived a 30 years development plan to work for my country in rural and urban communities as self-employed. I wanted to create a system where, at the end of my 30 years, it will become like a model that can be replicated in various communities. I started experimenting with vegetables like garlics. Many people have never seen garlics in my village, so I'll buy garlics from the city, experiment it, and I work with children to instill in them about nature conservation and how to grow food naturally. I experimented with different varieties of plants and raised animals for income. You see, in most of my pictures, I was always alone because everybody thought I was crazy. I never had any girlfriend. All the girls ran away from me. I had my first girlfriend when I was about 32 years. Can you imagine? So in 2002, I got a scholarship from Far and Wide, an organization in Scotland that heard about my work, to study tropical agriculture and rural development at the Regional College of Agriculture in Cameroon. So you see in one of the pictures, I was using local means to irrigate, because I came out with this model. If you don't have what you want, you better use what you have. So while at the Regional College of Agriculture, I graduated with an HND as a senior agricultural technician, specialized in spring water catchment protection and agroforestry. Why did I develop this interest and this passion about springs and water? Because while at the College of Agriculture, I drank dirty water and I contracted typhoid. I almost died. I suffered of typhoid later on for over 7 years. And one day I made a prayer, if God can heal me from this typhoid, I want to be the solution to ensure that no one should die of something that is necessary for life, which is access to clean water. And that is how I started doing a lot of research. I didn't want to specialize on crop production or animal production. I started to do something so that after my graduation, I will get back to my village and be the change that I want to see in my community. So in 2005, after my graduation, I founded a non-profit called Save Your Future Association. It is an all-voluntary organization. Nobody is paid. I wanted to instill that spirit of community service in young people so that we don't continuously blame people or blame the government or blame people for our failures. We should take development into our own hands. And I received a letter from His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, in 2005, who is now King Charles of England. He has written to me about 3 times, and I always feel fulfilled when I read such letters. It gives me a lot of fulfillment. So in 2024, I started transitioning my organization, Save Your Future Association, into a foundation, because I've been working for 29 years now at the grassroots. And I think on my 30th year, I'm going to go on a self-retirement and step back a little bit and see how I can now motivate young people across Cameroon and Africa. And the time has come for me to give back. That is why I created the Farmer Tantoh Foundation. It is recognized in the United States of America as a 501c nonprofit, and we are still in the process of acquiring the permanent authorization in Cameroon. So 16 people have joined my movement. 30 villages are now involved in the movement. Over 1,000 gardens have been created, and over 250,000 people are now impacted by the water projects. So we're now going to talk about botanic gardens of Cameroon. Cameroon is home to over 9,000 species of plants, with over 500 of these species endemic to Cameroon, which means that 500 of these species is found nowhere else in the world except in Cameroon. There are only 4 botanic gardens in Cameroon, with Limbe Botanic Gardens the most prominent and oldest. Limbe Botanic Garden was founded by the Germans in the late 1800s, and the goal was to experiment with economic plants like coffee, tobacco, tea, bananas, sugarcane, and palm. Then later on, it was handed to the British. I met some folks during this conference, and they told me they work in Cameroon in Limbe Botanic Gardens. So when I was growing up as a teenager, I thought botanic gardens was a Western concept. It's only until when I started noticing the effects of human activities on the environment and climate change, which was leading to disappearance of plant diversity. Then I decided I was going to start my own miniature botanic gardens. And now this is a small garden I started in my village in Cambe. So when I was a student in high school, I conceived the idea of creating this garden called Chua Botanical Garden in 1999, but I could only acquire the site from the local council in 2005. And the name was called Chua Botanic Garden. Chua is actually a name of a waterfall that cuts across the garden right down below. At the peak of the rainy season, it produced a very huge sound, chua. That's how the name Chua came about. And the main reason why I was creating this botanic garden is because in the middle of this garden, there is a small river that cuts across this garden to form the Chua waterfall. It takes its rise from 13 springs water catchment that follows a dendritic drainage pattern to join around this garden. And it was a dump site for waste. It was a site where the villagers would gather around to wash their clothes, and they pollute the aquatic ecosystem. So I was like, what can I do to change the mindset of this place? And it used to be like a spiritual site as well, where it used to harbor a lot of negative spirits. That is how the villagers believed. So I decided I was going to create a garden here. So we started clearing the site. And interestingly, we'll use plans to design an African map. For example, you see an African map here. And I'll bring young people into the garden and tell them, guys, do you know what? In as much as we live in the rural community, we can still travel in our minds in Africa. And I was like, who wants to go to South Africa? Just come and stand down here. You are welcome to Johannesburg. Who wants to go to Ethiopia? Go and stand around here. Or you come to Madagascar, to Morocco. So that's how young people traveled in their minds, by being just around the gardens. And I was able to experiment to identify where plants came from. Some of the plants, like rose periwinkle that came from Madagascar, I would teach young people that this is where these plants came from. I used to travel for 12 hours on rough roads to the cities to buy plants, and I'll carry these plants like little babies on my hand. I'm like, these are my babies. I'm going to plant in Chua Botanic Gardens, and I want the rural communities to be transformed. And you can see young people will gather around to learn from the initial phase of the garden, and it gave me a lot of inspiration. So these are the various stages of the garden from how it evolved, and it gives me a lot of encouragement when I saw how the plants were growing. You know, plants are like little babies. When you plant them, they grow. As you watch them grow, you always want to plant more. That's when I realized that you must not go to university to study how to plant flowers or to take care of the environment. You can learn hands-on the ground. You can read just books. You can go through the internet and research, and you learn how to take care of the environment. But it's rather unfortunate. The garden is not more, it is not more as it used to be, because the highway has destroyed half of the garden, and there's a highway that has cut across the garden. But however, the fulfillment that I have when I created this garden was to teach children how to be connected to nature. You know, I'm a Christian, I go to church. The Bible says in Proverbs 22, verse 6, if you train up a child in the way he should grow, when he is old, he will not depart from it. So in schools, our teachers used to teach us about plants. But even the teachers themselves, they could not identify these plants. So it was my interest to bring school clubs around the garden together with their teachers to learn about plants. And when they come, the names are well labeled, the scientific names are labeled. So when the children see the plants and they touch them, they memorize them. So around churches and schools and communities, I was teaching children how to plant flowers. And they'll come and work in the garden as volunteers and collect plants to go and plant in their various homes. That is what gave me the inspiration about Chua Botanical Garden, so that communities can learn how to plant their own flowers, to take care of their own environments. And we have planted over 1,000 gardens in the entire northwest region of Cameroon from 2005 to date. So now, conserving plant diversity around water catchments. So I realized that because of population pressure, farmers are moving up hills in search of fertile farmlands. But before then, what is a water catchment? A water catchment is a topographically defined area that is drained by an underground spring system to one point where the spring emerges. It is also a physical, biological, and socioeconomic unit subject to management of human and natural resources. So around these water catchments, we can also conserve it by planting trees, and that we can create miniature botanic gardens around water catchments. So why do we have to conserve water catchment areas? That is one of the reasons why I specialize in agroforestry and water catchment protection, because I realized that population growth has pushed farmers to move up hills in search of fertile farmlands located in watersheds. They slash and burn the natural forest which shades the water catchment. Grazers, too, need land for cattle. Communities have built houses in water catchment areas, causing springs to disappear. You see, this is a water catchment in a watershed in one of the villages that I work in, where they had to fell down most of the trees. They exposed the water catchment, and when the soil is exposed, the water table drops and the water disappears. So people have built houses around springs water catchment. So spring water catchment is protection. Spring water catchment protection is planning, implementing, monitoring a course of action over many years, involving a series of interventions to provide clean water resources that are desired and suitable to the consumers of water. So springs water catchment protection, therefore, includes rehabilitation practices like planting of trees, shrubs, grasses, carrying out soil conservation, carrying out erosion control, drainage work, and all of this is aimed at correcting past land use mistakes. So these are the various strategies for successful spring water catchment. Creation of awareness and sensitization. Collaborating organizations, so we collaborate with NGOs, local councils, water technicians, etc. We develop project proposals on how to conserve and rehabilitate water catchments in the hills. We plant appropriate trees, shrubs, and grasses at specific distances. We do fencing and digging of trenches. We do fire tracing, and we do maintenance. So the digging of trenches around spring water catchment is to trap pollutants from uphill so that it should not pollute the spring catchment. So this is the immediate spring catchment protection zone, which is 50 meters radius. A spring catchment that has been destroyed, there's need to plant trees to rehabilitate this spring water catchment. And you see the various distances to plant the trees from 0 to 20 meters. You need to plant fruit trees like bananas, pineapples, sugarcane, grass like kikuyu grass, rhizomes, elephant grass. So around this area is the intake area where if you want to build a spring and harness the water, so the plants that you plant around there, they have shallow roots so that their roots will not perforate the pipelines. So from 20 to 25 meters, you plant agroforestry species like acacia, calandra, and luciana. From 25 to 50 meters, you plant fruit trees like mango, pear, citrus. And from 50 meters beyond, you plant a live fence, you build an infiltration dish, and then you plant timber species. You also cultivate improved pastures for animals. You know, when springs are protected, farmers are displaced from this area. In Cameroon, the government uses force to send away farmers from walking around the springs. But in our approach at the grassroots, if you stop somebody from walking in a spring water catchment, you must provide an alternative. And one of the best alternatives is encouraging these farmers to plant a lot of agroforestry trees that will produce nectar for honey, and then they will create their apiaries right inside the spring water catchment. We'll also nurse a lot of indigenous plant species that are threatened, and then we'll plant inside these water catchments, and then the farmers too will plant fruit trees inside the water catchments. So once they start to harvest from these water catchments, and when they start to see the immediate benefits that they are getting from the water catchment, they themselves, they will be the main activists to protect the water catchment, and our water catchments will be saved, and biodiversity will be conserved, and we'll have little miniature botanic gardens around water catchment areas. So we have empowered over 15 nursery growers and several communities in planting of over 1 million trees in watersheds and communities. It's kind of interesting. We also work with school clubs to instill in children the importance of planting trees, vegetables, and flowers around the school premises. So we also preserve sacred forests. We have worked with kings and villages in mapping and preserving sacred forests. In 2007, I happened to be in Mongolia, and I worked with a Buddhist on springs and sacred places. And when I got this concept now, we now transfer the knowledge back in my country, where we have mapped out community forests and preserve them as sacred forests. And once you trespass into this forest, you have a fine to pay to the village. So by making the forest sacred, it indirectly protects nature and protects biodiversity, because most of the medicinal plants found in the village, we now plant them in this sacred forest. So after conserving water catchments, remember I told you about how I suffered of typhoid for over 7 years. So, and part of my program is to ensure that no one should die of something that is necessary, which is water. Because access to safe drinking water is a universal human right. So after the conservation of the water catchments, there is need to build now these catchments. So we have been able to build water reservoirs, we build the springs, and then we take the water through pipelines so that the communities now should have access to safe drinking water closer to their homes. Interestingly, we use indigenous knowledge in identifying varieties of plants that helps to filter water, and then we plant most of these plant species around the intake areas. The roots will form like mesh inside the earth, and it helps to filter the water naturally. And one of the concepts which we have succeeded in our water project is to empower women to play leadership role when it comes to development of water projects, because women are the highest users of water in the household, women and children. So once the women play leadership role, they coordinate the digging of the pipelines, they coordinate the constructions, they will better manage the water systems. Most of the times, many women do not get involved in such projects, but we are changing the narratives to let them know that gender balance is necessary and women should play leadership role when it comes to community development. So we've also built little springs in the mountains where it is inhabited by Fulanis. The Fulanis are marginalized groups that live in the mountains with their cattle. So we educate them on the importance of conserving spring water catchments and how to harness the springs and how to build the springs so that they can have clean water for drinking. Their animals too can also have clean water. So the Farmer Tantoh New Village Environmental Movement, it falls with the title, Leaving No One Behind. So after working in rural and urban communities for 29 years now with proven records and achievements, the idea of the New Village Movement is to identify passionate young people living in rural communities or who are stranded in cities or abroad and are willing to relocate back to their villages to be change makers. So you need to apply through the Farmer Tantoh's Foundation, and it is a fellowship program called the Farmer Tantoh's Fellowship. So you undergo a vigorous interview and selection process. Once you are elected as a Farmer Tantoh Fellow, so we will have to orientate you for a 2-day training at our resource center, which is under construction now. Then we'll assign you to your village. So this is the fellowship mechanism. Each fellow is allocated to a village. They'll sign an MOU for 1 year to commence environmental projects in his or her village. So he or she shall sensitize the village to plant green lawn in at least 100 homes, a local church, or a school. To start, the following is given to the fellows: seeds of carpet grass, of lawn, I beg your pardon. You create a nursery of the lawn and also a nursery for flowers. You know, you are given a motorbike and you are given a monthly stipend for 1 year. So at the end of 1 year, the fellow organizes a football competition in the village to inspire young people to participate in sports. Every participant taking part in the game shall pledge to plant a green lawn around their homes as a prerequisite to take part in the game. So we want to encourage young people through sports to participate in the environment. You know, in Cameroon, we are famous of football. In America, they call it soccer. So the fellow shall update the foundation with weekly reports and photos of their work. Then after 1 year, an evaluation team goes around to evaluate. If the fellow has not met up with their tasks, the bike is taken and assigned to a new fellow who is willing to commit, and your stipend is suspended. So the importance of planting lawns around homes in my community in Cameroon. You see, most of the houses have eroded foundations, and houses have collapsed on people. People have died because of negligence, because they clean around the homes and the foundations are exposed. So we train communities on how to plant lawns to protect the soil against erosion, to prevent dust, hence preventing cough in the dry season. It beautifies the environment. Children are clean and they don't dirty their clothes, hence parents don't spend much money on detergent. It prevents rural homes from collapsing, hence saving lives. And the lawns allows infiltration of water to recharge underground aquifer. So I tell a lot of communities, even if you think your home is very poor, there is beauty in nature. Just plant flowers and trees and lawns around your home, and you enjoy a little paradise in your community. So after the first year of completion, if the Farmer Tantoh's fellow has successfully implemented a task, he or she now can present a personal livelihood project for the movement to support. It can be an agricultural project, it can be an animal husbandry project, or it can be an ecotourism project. Then the fellow shall then commit to continue with the movement for another 1 year, making a total of 2 years fellowship. So during the second year, the fellow shall shall engage to start a miniature botanic garden so as to start preserving plant species in the village. So each village shall have a miniature garden that shall be mapped out on at least 1 hectare, where the young people in the village shall now engage in coordinating and bringing plant species that they feel that is threatened to plant in this botanical garden. So with a budget of 14,000 euros, one fellow can ignite a whole village to be transformed into a vibrant community in just 2 years. It is well proven, and I now have 16 fellows who are engaged now to kick off with the movement. So my goal is to elect 100 fellows, both males and females, to represent the movement in 100 villages of the northwest region of Cameroon. Villages can now create their own botanic gardens and design self-reliant projects to transform rural landscapes and create jobs. Projects shall focus on environmental protection, on clean water, on renewable energy, on agriculture, and on ecotourism. I believe that by the year 2030 and beyond, we must have contributed to support the UN achieve Sustainable Development Goals. If the UN really wants to achieve Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030, development should be focused from grassroots approach, because there are so many innovations around the world working at the grassroots, but they are not yet recognized. And I believe that through platforms like this, it is now time to get back to the grassroots. So as to avoid from top to bottom, we need to now take development from bottom to top. So I'm establishing an eco-village in my town. So we started construction of the eco-village and a resource training center, and we have constructed an eco-lodge. And the goal of this eco-village is to reconnect city dwellers back to ecological lifestyles. Many people living in the cities, they are drifted away from ecological lifestyles. And in my eco-village, so we have an aquifer that can pump over 30,000 liters of water every day. And it is our responsibility to provide clean water to the residents around who cannot afford water. And every day, we provide 10,000 liters of water to the community. So we try to demonstrate on how to raise birds like turkeys. We demonstrate with different plant varieties. And then we do sustainable landscape maintenance. And then currently, we are building a conference hall, a small conference hall, which is under construction. We started with the foundation, and we are still to take it to completion. This is where we are going to be training the new village fellows before we assign them back to their villages. And we're also going to be training a lot of young activists. So high school clubs, primary schools, elementary schools, they visit my eco-village to learn practically. And from there, they're able to carry out their own activities back in their homes. So our program has hosted over 100 international volunteers from USA, Canada, Europe, and Asia. It's kind of interesting when the local people see people traveling thousands of miles from different countries to come and participate in community service. The mindset of the local people changes. And then they therefore realize that environmental protection has reached the top of the global agenda. The way each and every community, nation, continent honors the environment has a tremendous impact that is felt across the globe. So most of the international volunteers have been our ambassadors. Please, if you want to come volunteer in future, just let me know. My story has been illustrated in a children's book, I Am Farmer, by American authors Miranda and Baptiste Paul for elementary schools across the United States. It is also translated into French in France, and it is being used for Francophone African countries and Haiti. It's rather interesting. I don't have royalties from this book, but it gives me a fulfillment that my story is impacting thousands of children across the world. Maybe someday my story will be translated into Korean, and I'll always come to Korea to share my experience with the children here. So in 2019, I had to travel to the United States for the book launch, and I visited 40 elementary schools in 12 states in 3 months, and I shared my story to over 30,000 children. When they learned from my story, and now so many schools in America are now practicing their own school gardens thanks to my experience. So many children have sent me videos how they are being change makers in their community by planting trees, by growing flowers, and I was like, wow. So I've received numerous recognitions around the world, and the most recent was the Ethna Prize in Doha, Qatar, in April 2025. This was an inaugural prize to acknowledge grassroots initiatives around the world that are not recognized. Out of 400 nominations from over 104 countries, 12 of us were shortlisted as finalists. And when they asked us to send our profile, I just had to send my PowerPoints, and they were like, wow, Tantoh, you are one of the winners. And while in Qatar, I emerged first winner in the world, and my prize was given to me by Her Excellency, the Vice Chairperson of Qatar Foundation. I was so happy to meet with some of the members of the Qatar Foundation here. They could recognize me, and it was really an honor. So this prize has come like a breakthrough in my life, like the biggest recognition in my life, to enable me scale up my projects in Cameroon, and it's going to help me support at least 2 of the new village movement fellows to engage practically in the villages, and it's also going to help me to scale up my movement, especially in Kenya, where I've done some training in Kenya, and we'll be able to do some water projects in Kenya. It doesn't matter where you come from, you are never too small or insignificant to contribute to the long-term sustainability of our planet just by doing very simple things to the best of your ability. You are improving our world. I used to tell a lot of people, our world of today is not a world of certificates, it's the world of what can you do. I don't have a degree, I don't have a master's, but I believe my diploma and some short training courses I've done around the world and my practical experience for over 29 years has earned me a PhD. And my PhD is based on 3 principles: persistence, hope, and dedication. That's my PhD. 감사합니다. So I want to end my presentation with a story of a hummingbird. Be a hummingbird in your community. So one day, there was this huge forest that caught fire. All the animals were running for their dear lives. And the little tiny hummingbird said, guys, let's do something to quench this fire from destroying our home. The hummingbird started flying to a nearby stream to suck water in its tiny beak to sprinkle on the fire. All the animals stood there helplessly, watching the fire consuming the whole forest. And the hummingbird was flying several times to suck water in its beak to sprinkle on the fire. At some point, the hummingbird asked the elephant, Mr. Elephant, you have a large trunk. Why can't you suck hundreds of gallons of water with your trunk, and let's join hands to quench this fire from destroying our homes? The animals were laughing at the hummingbird. You are so little, you can't do anything. The hummingbird kept on flying several times. At some point, the hummingbird stopped and told all the animals, guys, I am doing the best I can. In order to solve all the problems in this world, we just have to be like the hummingbirds. For if everyone was trying to do very little in his or her own corner, no one would ever be there to do a lot. So let us all be like the hummingbirds in our communities and do the best that we can do. I am a hummingbird. I am doing the best I can. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Farmer Tantoh, for inspiring us today. You have enhanced the health and well-being of the communities by providing them water, built interdisciplinary partnerships with schools, women, kings, and scholars, used technology to build springs and protect watersheds, empowered youth through scholarships that necessitate them pledging to enhance and protect the local environment, and promoted equity by involving women, teachers, and children in protecting the environment. Your presence has brought great value to this Congress, and we deeply appreciate your contribution. Thank you so much.